Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast, brought to you by Active Management, the world's leading fitness business coaches who in 2015 will help you #grow your business. This is the world's #1 podcast for fitness business owners and managers. We interview real owners and learn what has been working for them to make them so successful. Here's the host of the Fitness Business Podcast, Chantal.
Thanks, Harper. Welcome to your weekly injection of the fitness business info. That's right, you're listening to the Fitness Business Podcast. And today, I'm not alone because our special guest today is the Managing Director of Active Management, Justin Tamsett, and he's sitting right next to me. Welcome to the show, JT.
Thanks, Chantal. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Now, JT, can you remind our listeners what the topic is that we are talking about today?
It's that taboo topic, Tinderisation.
Tinderisation. Well, I cannot wait to hear more on that one. Before we kick off today, there is something really important I want to remind all of our Australian and New Zealand listeners. I mentioned it on last week's show, but just in case you've missed the big news, on the 16th and 17th of July, Active Management will be running a 2-day course in Sydney, Australia called 7 Strategies to Reach and Retain Clients. Now, you can register for the 7 Strategies to Reach and Retain program on the Active Management website, and all the details are in today's show notes. You know, JT, to get started today, I'm really keen to hear an update from you. What have you been up to since we last caught up?
Well, I think the first thing I should say, Chantal, we're really excited about doing the PT program. There's nothing like it in Australia or New Zealand. And if we've got any international listeners, as you're going to be presenting at that show, I'm sure you'd be more than happy if someone in the US or the UK decided for us to run that in their country.
I think I could probably find space in my diary.
Okay, yeah. So anyone listening, if you want us to run the 7 strategies to reach and retain clients in your country, contact Chantal and she'll organise the plane ticket and we'll be there for sure.
Definitely.
So I've been conducting the Industry Leaders Roundtable here in Australia for the last couple of weeks. That's probably what my energy has been.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've just done a club owners one this week. Last week we did one with PTs, and one of the interesting things we found with the personal trainers is we were studying their KPIs, and we found that the majority of the roundtable members had a closing ratio of over 100%.
How does that work?
It doesn't. So what that says is that they've got more clients who have joined and started with them this month than they told how much it costs to join or start with them.
Mm-hmm.
And what that shows is that they're not recording their stats well enough or accurately enough. And interestingly enough, when you've got that, you then start to delve deeper into those sales stats to find more information out about the collection of the data, but also what is actually happening in your PT business. And what we identified is that we don't think every inquiry is being written down.
Right.
So what that means is that when I meet with personal trainers and they're saying to me, well, we need more sales, we need more clients, and in order to get that, we need more leads, it clearly identified to me that because we're not recording all our leads, we actually don't know how many leads we're getting. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm guessing, we're talking about a sample size here, but in actual fact, it's probably representative of a much larger group.
Absolutely. I think what happens is that we only count a lead if we then can make an appointment with them to have a chat, or we only count it as a price presentation if they join. That's all well and good, and that makes us look fantastic, but it doesn't actually give us any real hard data. So if you've got a studio and you're listening today and you've got a studio, what you really want to make sure is that you are recording every inquiry and the source of that inquiry, regardless of whether you make an appointment with them or not. So that gives you an idea of how good your sales skills are, but more importantly, it gives us an idea of if our marketing's working or not. And even more interesting is that we found through our mystery shopper service with Active Management is that I think it's about 76 or 77% of inquiries that are not appointed are not written down in our mystery shopper clients' clubs. So the owner goes to the person that took the call because there's a written report and says, hey, what happened here? Then they go back and they look at their log record and it's not even recorded there. So it's not just PTs, it's clubs as well.
Happening across the board.
So the general feel across the world with clients that I work with is that we don't have enough leads. But we may well have enough leads, we're just not recording the leads, if that makes sense.
It does make sense because we hear it all the time, right? We're always hearing it's about we don't have enough leads, leads, but data entry, data recording is a big part of that. So.
Yeah, so we kind of need to strip back our processes and make sure we're getting that right. I also think that in our clubs, we emphasise so much about the recording of the inquiries, but we emphasise the sales conversion ratio so much that our receptionists or our salespeople don't want to record everything because they might get punished, fired, worst case scenario. So I think we need to change the culture because from an owner's perspective or a club manager's perspective, we really want to know all our inquiries, but more importantly, we want to know the source of those inquiries so that we can find out where we need to be putting our money, marketing dollar-wise, as opposed to not putting it. And if we're not tracking that information, it doesn't help us.
Yep. So we need to be helping out the marketing teams, helping out the people that are looking after that, the investing those dollars by recording that information more accurately.
Yep. Spot on.
Really good tip.
We also we did a club inspection on our club owners round table, and we went into a club and it had a magnificent sign. It was one of the best signs I've ever seen in a club that had its mission statement, its vision statement, its core values in the business and what they're trying to achieve. It really looked quite beautiful. And then when I, being the pain in the ass that I am, I asked the staff, I said, can you tell me what your mission statement is? Crickets. Can you tell me what your vision statement is? Crickets. And then I said, all right, well, you've got to be able to tell me a couple of your core values. Crickets.
Oh, no.
What that sort of taught me very quickly is we often do the things that we hear at a conference. Oh, we need to have a mission statement, or we need to have a vision statement. And so we put it up. But what we don't do is we don't build the value of that mission statement into what I'm going to call the DNA of the people that work for us. And I think Brent Darden talked about it in show 1, didn't he?
I was just about to say that. He did. He was talking about the importance of sharing key numbers with your business and getting them involved in that. But this is exactly the same thing, making sure they're immersed in the beliefs and the vision and the mission.
And I know when I had my club that our mission statement was an incredibly long mission statement. If I asked all the staff that worked for me, they would not remember the majority of it, but I think they might remember the last 3 or 4 words, which was creating a magical active experience. Great name, that active. Just keeps popping up everywhere in my life. So I think they would remember that, but they wouldn't remember the first bit. Now, to me, that's still not good enough. So I should have really worked harder on instilling what that is. But if you're going to go to the extent of having a mission, a vision, or core values, you've got to go to the extent of drilling that into your team so it becomes part of the DNA of the team. Whatever the core value is, it doesn't matter. But we need to drill that into them.
Yep. So it's not just about having the pretty sign and making it look good to the customers and to the external world.
Yep.
But the team members, your team needs to know it and needs to believe it and needs to be involved in it.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, great.
What else did we do? We looked at a case study that was featured in Harvard Business Review. Does that make me sound like a wanker?
Well, it makes you sound pretty special. I'm impressed. Harvard Business Review.
Yeah. So in the Harvard Business Review, I read a case study on the Georgia Aquarium. And the Georgia Aquarium in 2003 was the largest aquarium in the world. It had 3.2 million visitors in its first year. 2 years later, it dropped off to about 2.5. And we saw the numbers of people attending dropping off. And they did some research, and they found in that research that in these experience type parks, the longer the park was open, the less people came. That makes sense? We kind of got used to it. And what they found was just by putting in a new ride or a new exhibit or a new event, it might have spiked for a little while, but not long term. So what the Georgia Aquarium wanted to do was get their numbers back up. They wanted to boost their income, and they didn't want to reduce the consumer feel in the place. So, if you think about it, you say, okay, well, let's just drop our ticket prices. We'll get more people through. But if we get more people through, then our customer satisfaction level, the queues are going to be longer. People are going to get really pissed off. So they had these constraints. And what was really cool and quite interesting is they analysed all the season passes holders, people that have bought long-term passes, and they looked at their demographics. They looked at the postcodes that they came from, and then they found other postcodes in their area where the demographics matched. So what they identified was who was their core customer, and then mirror and match that core customer in other postcodes. So in other words, they've really identified who their number one prospect is, who's going to buy passes or come back. And what that meant was that they could then pull a lot of their expensive mainstream advertising of a billboard next to the freeway, pull that. They pulled their advertising from mainstream TV because they understood their customer better. So what they did was they advertised on cable TV, which would have been cheaper, on the TV shows that they knew their demographics watched. Pretty clever, isn't it?
Yeah, so they would you say they invested more in the research side of things?
Correct.
And they've saved money in kind of splashing it around and putting the advertising everywhere, and they've been really specific with their targeting.
Yep, that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
So what we do in the fitness industry is we do a letterbox drop that goes to 3, 4, 5 postcodes, and we hope and pray.
Cross our fingers.
Cross your fingers that it works. So, but what the Georgia Aquarium did is they clearly identified who their main customer was. And I think that's a really clever strategy. They then started to get more people in. So they added bands, DJs, buskers, parades through the place, and basically entertainment. So I'm not sure if you remember, but we talked about wait time with customers.
Sure do.
So they've got more customers coming through now. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the queues are longer. So what did they do?
They're filling the wait time.
They fill the wait time with entertainment.
Okay.
And so the customers are then coming back and going, you know what, this is a great experience. So not only were they getting more people through, but because of this entertainment and they're filling the wait time, their customer satisfaction surveys increased. Their NPE, their Net Promoter Score, increased. So it's a fascinating case study. It's really cool. I guess we can put, might be a link for Harvard Business Review that we can put on the show notes.
Okay, we'll check that out. JT, without going into too much detail because it's a huge question, but for any of our listeners at the moment that are thinking, okay, well, that sounds really cool and that's something that I'd like to do, what would you say would be that first step to getting started in really drilling down to that customer base, finding out more about your customers?
I think there's to me, there's 2 steps. One is you can make a whole lot of assumptions about your customer. The second thing that you could do is actually sit down with them. You may want to make some assumptions first and then sit down with them. That might be more time efficient. Alternatively, you'd literally sit down with them and you say, okay, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, tell me what TV shows you watch, and you get an understanding of them.
So there's some necessary one-on-one time there.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've just spent on Roundtable a lot of time talking about avatars and building avatars around the customer and what that customer looks like. That's probably too in-depth to do on this show. We might do it on another show in a month or 2.
Sounds really good. Okay, so the reason that we're here today is to talk about that word, Tinderisation. I've got to tell you, JT, of all the consumer insight topics that you have talked about, this one has definitely got me intrigued. So tell me, what's it all about?
Well, it's probably not as exciting as you may think it is. But I guess, in the digital fuel world of connections that we now live in, the consumer themselves desires convenience, reduced costs, and improved status. We've talked about that. But more importantly, the digital world allows us to share our experiences, our interests, and our values. And we see that every day on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Can you tell me, and if somebody's listening, I'd love to know, Why do personal trainers put pictures on Instagram with their shirts off or in crop tops?
To get lots of likes, so that people are double clicking on that photo. That's what it's all about.
It's all about like that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm on Instagram. I promise now I'll have my shirt on. No, but what we have to do in our business is we must continue to foster this connection. But what we're seeing is the consumer these days is more willing and more ready for an instant and flexible communication or flexible connection with other people. Here's where Tinderisation fits in. And the scare, for some people it's scary. For the younger people it's like not so scary, but here's where it fits in. The last research I read, 10 million matches a day on Tinder.
10 million.
A day.
Yikes.
Across the world. Like, I can't even fathom that. How many people are hooking up, whatever the definition of hooking up on Tinder is. I was talking to someone the other day and he said he was at a sporting competition and they're in camp for a week and all the boys and the girls, while they're on camp, are just on Tinder flicking through, trying to work out who they were going to meet in the bar that night. I'm like, wow.
Instant connection.
I was with a mate of mine and his son, who's 18. We're in Hawaii and he's on Tinder in Hawaii and he meets this girl on Tinder. He's in the same hotel, the floor below, who is from Melbourne.
Wow.
So they're just samples of how Tinder works. And if you're not sure how Tinder works, can I suggest you Google it? We're not going to go into it on this podcast.
It's not part of the educational podcast.
No. But what it shows us is that Tinder has completely reframed connections with strangers, completely reframed it. And many consumers now, for whatever reason, have a greater trust in strangers and meeting strangers and in quicker time frames. So I guess the question that I've got to ask is, in our clubs, in our studios, with our outdoor boot camps, in our programs, what are we doing to connect people? They're wanting to connect, but what are we actually doing to connect people? You know, I'll give you an example. I was in the gym this morning working out and there was a trainer there that I know and he's training a client and the client says hello to me all the time and I say hello to them, but I don't even know her name. And he could have said today, hey, you guys train at the same time and I know you're saying hello to each other, but you don't use each other's names. Justin, this is Fiona, this is Justin. And that would have been really cool because obviously I could do the same thing. I just don't do Tinder very well. I could do the same thing, but in a club, we almost had this expectation that our staff would be hosts of a party. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. You know, I'd love, and I think that we used to do this years ago, old school, in a group fitness class. Before the group fitness class started, the group fitness instructor may well have said, okay, I just need to fix something up on the stage. While I do that, which was a complete decoy, turn to the person next to you and introduce yourself.
You know, it's funny that you say that because we don't do that anymore, do we?
No, well, you don't. I watch your classes.
I don't do it. And you know what? I think in some ways in some cases we've gotten scared to meet someone new in those situations.
It's much easier on Tinder, isn't it?
It's much easier. Yeah.
Or Facebook and, you know, I think we, as a human race, we probably have got more comfortable sitting behind our computers.
Yeah.
So, but what this trend is telling us is that people want that. And I think in the 80s and the 90s, probably before you were born and some of our listeners.
Right, yeah. Thanks for that.
we actually had clubs. Now we have centres. And I think if we want to be successful moving forward, we've got to go back to clubs. We've got to connect people. If we connect people, they'll hold each other accountable for working out. That takes the pressure off us around our retention strategies, around following up low users or no users. The members will do that for us. And I think that is a real important component that we're missing to call ourselves a health club or a personal training club we are back to just being a centre where people come, do their stuff and get out.
You know, JT, it's interesting you say that because in the interview that I did with Dr. Paul Bedford last week, one of the things that he recommended for us to better engage and to retain our members was for the group fitness in particular to introduce them to someone else in the club. That was one of the key insights that he gave us.
Another staff member or another member?
Both. So he said introduce them to someone else so that you are creating, I guess, an experience as opposed to what you're saying, which is just arrive, leave, that's it.
Look, I think there's a place in our industry for members to pay their membership, which is renting equipment. Then there's a place in our industry for clubs who may have less members, but may therefore charge more and connect them. So I guess the challenge that I would leave our listeners today is to think about how can we connect our customers better? What can we do to connect? And I think that to me is a really important aspect.
You know, I would love to hear from any of our listeners that maybe have examples of how they have been connecting.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear that. So if anyone out there has got examples of perhaps a system or initiative that you've implemented within your business that you have found really successful that maybe you can share with some of our other listeners.
That'd be awesome.
Excellent. Is there anything else you want to chat about re-Tinderisation?
No, I think I've done that one to death.
I think you've done a pretty good job of explaining that, so thank you very much.
Can I just say for the record, I'm pretty sure Tinder is not a sponsor of Active Management or the Fitness Business Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But you'll find it as a tag on the podcast, maybe.
Mate, that's a good idea.
Yep,
but we won't put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, that's right. JT, thank you so much for being our special guest on the Fitness Business Podcast today. Don't forget, you can actually find more information about JT at activemgmt.com.au. And of course, you can become one of his many Twitter followers at JTActiveMGMT. Did I get all that right?
Sounding pretty good to me.
Excellent. We'll also pop those details in the show notes.
The Fitness Business Podcast is very appreciative of our podcast partners. Here's a quick word from one of our partners.
Have I told you lately just how much we love our sponsors? The truth of the matter is this show just wouldn't be possible without them. And I'm really excited about introducing you to our next sponsor. I had a chance to chat to the guys from Visual Fitness Planner recently. And let me tell you, this program rocks. As a former PT myself, I know how motivating it is for a client to set their sights on a goal. And Visual Fitness Planner is the ultimate way for clients to not only set goals, but to see what they'll look like when they achieve them. Have a listen to hear all about this awesome product. I'd like to welcome Alan and Warren from Visual Fitness Planner to the show. Alan, can you tell everyone all about your product?
Okay, the VFP is a fully customizable platform that provides clubs with a consistent sales presentation, both at the point of sale and at personal training. This significantly helps increase the set, show, close percentages for the clubs.
Okay, so Warren, can you tell us how does Visual Fitness Planner help fitness businesses?
Well, as Alan mentioned, not only does the Visual Fitness Planner help to increase the set, show, close percentages, but it also brings the member into the sale. It's all about the consistency of a presentation, both at the point of sale and also during the personal training. What we want to ensure is that the VFP provides a tool, if you would, to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, whether it's a membership offering, personal training, group ads, anything of that nature. We want to make sure that they're being fully exposed because it's all about the consistency of a presentation to ensure that we're increasing the close percentages, the show percentages, and so forth.
Great. So, Alan, tell us, why have you sponsored the Fitness Business Podcast?
Good question. The simple answer is brand awareness. Aligning VFP with the business webinars allows us to reach out and contact people who are within the same industry. The VFP is currently in 1,600 clubs worldwide, 14 countries, and 8 languages. And we're very excited about this opportunity and partnership.
Wow, that's fantastic. So really importantly, what should people do if they want to chat further? First of all, if they're in the US, if they're in Australia, or really anywhere else in the world?
Okay, if they're in the US or anywhere besides Australia and New Zealand, I suggest they reach out to Warren. His email is web@vfp.us. That's webb@vfp.us. And if they're in Australia or New Zealand, contact myself at alan.s@myvfp.com.au. It's alan.s@myvfp.com.au.
Excellent. And we will also pop a copy of those contact details in the show notes. Thanks so much, Alan and Warren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I reckon you probably know that we're huge fans of podcasting for marketing your business and for helping share information. So for all of you out there who are thinking about starting your own podcast, this next segment is for you. Our resident podcast expert, Sharon, is going to give us some insights on how to identify your podcast. Let's tune in to my chat with Sharon.
Hi, Chantel. Thanks so much for having me back on the show today. Yes, right. Identifying your targeted audience is going to be the first place to start. For example, are you wanting to target younger folks who are working out at the gym and need motivation to stick with it? Maybe you want to target people who've been doing weight training for a while, but they're looking for some suggestions for quality supplements that can boost their results significantly and safely. That group of people will be your niche, your target group, or your demographic. The more detailed and specific you can be in identifying this group, the better. One of the best ways to do this is to create what we call an avatar, your ideal listener. You should get very detailed in the description of this person. Write it all down. Give them a face and a name. One of the people I follow closely in the podcast industry is John Lee Dumas. He's the host of one of the most successful podcasts around called Entrepreneur on Fire. In his teachings, he gives an example, an avatar that goes from bad to really good. And in his example, a not so great avatar is this: anyone who likes the topic X and wants to learn more about it. So you can see, not so great, really. It doesn't tell you anything about the person or the topic. A better start to defining your avatar sounds more like this. My avatar is 25 to 35 years of age, works a full-time 9-to-5 job, has a family with 2 kids, and finds themselves frustrated and feeling alone every day because they don't know where to find the knowledge that I'm going to provide them about X. Not bad, but not really, really good. Now, here's an example of really, really good. My avatar is 32. Her name is Melissa, and she's a writer. She's been wanting to start a blog for months now, but she just doesn't know where to start. She's a good writer, but she could really use some help on how to structure and format a blog post. Plus, she's not really sure what exactly she wants to write about most of the time. She's working part-time and earning her graduate degree online, so she's usually studying on how she could start her blog on the weekends. Melissa lives with her boyfriend, and they both want to travel more, hate their jobs, and don't make enough money. So now that's an avatar. So when that lady starts her podcast, if she wants to start one, and she's trying to determine who to interview and about what topics to cover, she can ask herself, what would Melissa want to hear? What topics would help provide Melissa with an actionable plan to get her blog going? The avatar is invaluable.
So Sharon, once I've identified my avatar, what would you say is the first step to building the right format or the right structure for my podcast?
Well, that all depends on what would feel right to Melissa, your avatar. Is she someone who's more attracted to an interview style and who'd like to hear many different guests share their expertise and tips? Or is she maybe someone who'd like to hear you talking with just one other person, like a co-host, about various aspects of blog posting and ideas for what comes next? What style appeals to her more? That will be a concern. That said, though, it is true that there's a great value in interviewing others, especially experts in the field. It brings authority and credibility to you just by having them on your show.
Okay, so once we have our podcast format in mind, where do we go from there? What would you say is next?
Well, once you've decided your format and who you're targeting, you're ready to get started. If you're going to interview people, line up your first guest and get ready to push the record button. So you're going to need to know what equipment to use.
Perfect segue, Sharon, because next month, Sharon will share with us some equipment recommendations for getting your podcast recorded. Thanks for your time again today, Sharon.
Yes, thanks so much again, Chantel, for having me.
An important part of being a fitness industry professional is staying up to date with ongoing education. So each month, we're going to bring you info on events, organisations and opportunities for you to learn and grow yourself and your business. Starting with this month's special guest, it's Pam O'Donnell from the URSA Institute. So Pam, tell me, what is the URSA Institute?
The URSA Institute is an executive management course developed for health club operators. It gives the attendees a solid foundation on all the essential areas of club management and also the resources that are available from URSA to help them run their clubs more effectively. The Institute includes education, hotel, meals, social events, and over $800 worth of URSA research and publications. And the Institute is really a great value. I've seen similar programs for other industries priced as much as 3 to 5 times as much. It's really an immersion in club operation best practices. Most, if not all, of the faculty attend the whole event, so they continue to provide insight and information throughout the week. And the attendees also learn from each other, the URSA staff and the sponsors. And let's face it, the suppliers are out there meeting new club operators and seeing new clubs all the time. So the networking and the learning that comes from that networking is really a key component and a benefit of attending the Institute.
So Pam, who attends or who should attend the URSA Institute?
There's usually a wide spectrum of attendees. They include people who are new to the industry, new to management, or people who've been in the industry for a while and need to recharge their batteries. We had several people attend numerous times. A couple of examples from last year, just to give you an idea. My favorite story was Alice Diamant. She had worked for the USAA for many years, and she had the opportunity to buy a club in her hometown, so she came to the Institute to learn about the industry. She spent the weekend taking in all she could in her classes, but then she also interviewed the faculty, the attendees, the sponsors, and the staff to find out what was the best advice they could give her and what she should avoid. And I'm happy to say she was able to buy her club and is doing great. Last year's winner of the John McCarthy Scholarship had been in the industry for 8 years, but she just had been promoted to the manager of her club. There's department heads, managers, CFO, and owners, and they may be developing a club from a single club operation or be part of a multi-club chain.
That's great. And you've given us some insights already into what they learn and what's involved in the URSA Institute. Can you tell us a little bit more? Tell us more about what people learn and who it is that they learn from.
Well, unfortunately, due to the economy, the Institute went on hiatus for 5 years, but we brought it back last year. And what we did before we did that was we interviewed former attendees and companies that had sent people in the past and people who hadn't, just to get an idea of what they wanted in the curriculum and what they had as skill gaps in their company. From that, working with a group of industry leaders, we developed the current curriculum. We've outlined the areas each class should include, so there's continuity from year to year, and it isn't simply one person's perspective on that topic. But because the faculty does change from year to year, there's always new perspectives and new things to learn. The faculty includes professors from UNC who will teach classes on service innovation and the power of storytelling at work. And we also have a number of industry leaders and experts like Rick Caro, Allison Flatley, Bill McBride, Sandy Franco, Brent Darden, Alan Leach, Michelle Melkerson-Granrid, Scott Lewandowski, Jason Reinhart, and Frank Furness. And to give you an idea of the courses, we begin with strategic planning so everybody gets in the right frame of mind to start the week. And then our other courses will cover financial management, profit center management, staff hiring, training and development, day-to-day legal issues, all areas of membership from retention to member experience to engagement, personal and group training management are covered, and promotion from sales management, marketing strategies to social media and digital strategies are all core to the program. And then in some cases, like health promotion and community service and industry trends and research, the classes are team taught by URSA staff members and industry leaders. This way, the students get a chance to understand the significance of the research and the importance to the industry, but they also get the practical application of the material in a club setting. And then finally, on the last day, we wrap up with preparing for the future. So everyone gets the chance to share their takeaways and really to help the attendees plan for how to integrate what they've learned once they get back into their club.
Well, Pam, we had Brent Darden and Bill McBride as two of our podcast guests. So our listeners will be able to testify just how great they are, who are part of your faculty key speakers that you just mentioned then.
Yeah, and I have to say Brent and Bill McBride were both key in bringing the Institute back and helping to develop the curriculum. They're part of that industry leadership group that helped us develop the curriculum.
Love that. And tell us, what should people do if they want more information, or I should say more importantly, if they want to attend?
Well, as I'm sure you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this event, so I'm happy to talk to anyone by phone. My direct line is 617-316-6730, or people can email me at pod@ursa.org about the program. Also, anyone in our membership team is available to answer any questions. Or if you prefer, you can go to ursa.org/institute for more details on the program and how to register. One thing I will mention is our date break before rates increase is June 24th. So I hope people will sign up soon.
That's great. Pam, thank you so much for your time today and telling us more about the Ursa Institute.
I hope we'll see some people in Chapel Hill this summer.
Thanks, Pam.
It's time for the Fitness Business Podcast Wrap.
Here we are again at the end of another show. As always, I like to leave you with my top takeaways from this month's guest. In order to accurately understand your business and the effectiveness of your marketing dollars, make sure you track every single lead, regardless if they become a client or not. Your team should know and understand your business, vision, mission, and core values, so these elements become part of the team DNA. In 2015, consumers desire convenience, reduce costs, and improve status. We need to learn how to truly understand our customers in order to attract more of them. Next week, our show will feature Bill McBride, the co-founder, president, and CEO of Active Sports Clubs. I spoke to Bill about the threat of substitution, characteristics to look for in a great manager, and critical components to a strategic plan. And of course, you'll hear from another one of our brand new podcast sponsors. Before I sign off today, don't forget to jump on and rate the Fitness Business Podcast on iTunes. All you need to do is go to iTunes, search for the Fitness Business Podcast, just like you did when you subscribed. And under the title is rating and reviews. Just click there and give us a gold star rating and write a comment. If you have any suggestions, comments, or feedback about the show, please email me. My direct email address is chantal@activemgmt.com.au. Or if you've got any questions at all about owning or managing a fitness business, I'll forward them on to JT and we might just feature them in an upcoming show. Until next week, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.
You have been listening to the world's #1 podcast called the Fitness Business Podcast, brought to you by Active Management. We are dedicated to helping your fitness business #grow in 2015. Check out www.activemgmt.com.au for resources, tools, and more to help you. And by far, the best value for you is to become a member. So join today at www.activemgmt.com.au.